Hi, this is Mike Fry, and you are listening to the We Effing Told You So podcast. Today is September 15, 2025. Today's installment is Laura Loomer, Nick Fuentes, Charlie Kirk, the Groyper Wars, why you probably don't know about them, and what they say about our media and society. Hint, if the media were doing their jobs, you would know about them. We probably wouldn't have the president we have, and Charlie Kirk would still be alive. After our last episode about the horrific killing of Charlie Kirk, we were surprised by how many people told us that before the killing, they never heard of him. Then, when the shooter was linked to the Groyper group, we heard more people say they didn't know what a Groyper was. When we explained that a Groyper was a name for the group of alt-right white supremacists who follow Nick Fuentes, many of them then asked who he is. So we decided to do this podcast to help explain all of that. We have to start by saying that if mainstream media in the USA had been doing their jobs for the last 20 years, no one would need to ask any of those questions. The U.S. intelligence agencies have been warning us about them and other ultra-right-wing groups like them for decades. They've told us over and over that the greatest risk to the USA is from radical right-wing crazies just like them. In our last episode, we covered how Kirk had built his career saying reprehensible things, like that gun deaths are an acceptable cost to pay for keeping the Second Amendment alive, though on that point, following his death, it seems clear that his followers only feel that way when people they don't care about are the ones being shot, and when they're the ones holding the guns. And shrugging off the mass killing of kids in schools as acceptable was far from the most offensive thing Kirk regularly said. He also said that gay people should be stoned to death in family-friendly public executions. He said that no black woman could have the intellectual capacity to ever be taken seriously. And these were not one-offs. They were his entire shtick. He had nothing else other than vile, hate-filled, violent rhetoric. He was a major part of the political action arm of the alt-right neo-Nazi militia movement. The so-called Groper Wars, which have been going on since at least 2019, were launched by Nick Fuentes, who calls his followers Groypers, named after their cartoon frog mascot. These Groper Wars targeted Charlie Kirk and his rallies because Fuentes believes that Kirk was too mainstream, that he was not radical enough. Let that sink in for just a minute. Fuentes believes that the anti-black, anti-Jewish, kill all the gays white supremacist had, quote, sold out to the mainstream, end quote. The goal of the Groypers was to disrupt Kirk's rallies and bring his followers over to their camp. To say that the people on both sides of these so-called Groper Wars are unhinged lunatics is probably putting it too kindly. And with our own intelligence agencies trying to warn us about people like them, you would think that our news organizations might have at least tried before now to tell us who these people are. You would think they would have at least a passing interest in covering them, but they didn't. Then, following Kirk's assassination, they covered him like he was some sort of hero or a head of state or something. Reporters like Matthew Dowd, who simply mentioned Kirk's history of hate speech, were fired. College professors who pointed it out were also fired. To call it anything other than a massive whitewashing or sane washing would be too kind. Don't believe us? Think about a similar story from a different perspective, as Maddie Hassan did on the Joy Reid show the other day, when he said, quote, if Louis Farrakhan was killed, assassinated, how would we cover his death? Would we say he was a wonderful man of faith? Because he is a man of faith. Whether you like it or not, Would we say he's a great family man? Because he is a family man, whether you like it or not. Or would we say he expressed really horrific views about Jews and other minorities over the years? End quote. I think we all know the answer to Hassan's question. We also feel compelled to point out that neither Reed nor Hassan are on MSNBC anymore. They are among the many thoughtful, articulate, and intelligent people of color the network has canceled in recent years, while also sane-washing neo-Nazis like Fuentes and Kirk. So much for them being the lefty media. As for Laura Loomer, who is she and what role does she play in all this? She's an American political activist, conspiracy theorist, and internet personality who's been banned from several platforms and events for hate speech and misinformation, and embraced by the Trump regime. She ran for Congress in 2020 and 22 and influenced Trump to fire national security officials in 2025. In the white supremacy department, she sides more with the totally batshit crazy wing, as this now famous and since then deleted tweet from her demonstrates. In mid-July, after Charlie Kirk began loudly calling for Trump to release the Epstein files, Loomer wrote on X, quote, "I don't want to hear Charlie Kirk claim he is pro-Trump ever again. After this weekend, I'd say he has revealed himself as a political opportunist, and I have had a front row seat to witness the mental gymnastics these last 10 years. Lately, Charlie has decided to behave more like a charlatan, claiming to be pro-Trump one day while he stabs Trump in the back the next." End quote. To be clear, the fact that folks like Loomer, Fuentes, and other alt-right white supremacists believe that calling for Trump to release the Epstein files is, quote, stabbing him in the back, suggests that they believe Trump is seriously implicated in the Epstein files, and that they simply don't care that he is. This means that all of their professed outrage about this notorious pedophile ring over all those years was not real. It was fake and performative and for political purposes only. Apparently, when Kirk didn't get the memo and he began calling for the release of the Epstein files, a whole new wave of attacks were planned in the Groyper wars against him. For his part, Fuentes has only made himself more guilty looking by screaming that he's being framed for Kirk's killing, even though most of the media has been utterly silent about all of that, and the current regime is exploiting the murder as an excuse to attack Democrats. It's all the kind of nonsensical bullshit you could not possibly make up if you tried, and the reason you don't know about it is because the mainstream media has, at minimum, either completely failed at their jobs or have intentionally kept this information from their readers, viewers, and listeners. In summary, we will simply quote Joy Ann Reid, who wrote on Blue Sky, quote, "To review, an apparent right-wing civil war between white Christian nationalist Groypers and white Christian nationalist college campus activists results in the murder of a leader of the latter, and that will now spark a 1930s-style push against liberals by the fascists who run the country." End quote. So it's kind of like when Bush and Cheney decided to invade Iraq because of 9/11, even though Iraq had nothing whatsoever to do with 9/11. Rather than help inform the American population what was actually happening back then, so-called news organizations built special studios, made stimulating graphics and emotional music to bring exciting live coverage of the invasion of Iraq, which they branded shock and awe and wrapped in patriotic images of the American flag. They styled that invasion and sold it to us like it was a football game to watch for entertainment, while leaving out all of the most important details. As we've said before, these right-wing lunatics will settle for nothing but total control or civil war, and it looks like the media is already starting to sell that war too. They were complicit in Iraq. They are setting up to be complicit in the next war, too. Back in 2003, we marched against the planned invasion of Iraq and warned the media was selling us the war. Now that they seem to be doing it again, we have to say, we effing told you so.